everybody, it's Georgia Rose. Welcome to the Soul Space. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Monday. And also, I know it is a Jewish holiday for some of our people who are celebrating that. So I believe it's their new year. So Happy New Year. I'm just going to share the show. And if all of you would do that as well, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to make sure I read your comments tonight as we all file in. I see I already have some people on tonight, and welcome to the show. If you do want to call into the show tonight, Bobby will put the number on the screen in a little while. So, wow, what a weekend we had. It's still raining here in New York. It's been 3 days, maybe even 4. I don't know. I lose track sometimes. It's been about 3 days of torrential rain. Did get a little walk in yesterday, even though it was kind of misty. I was grateful for that. But yeah, the weather has been really not too good around here. It doesn't feel like fall at all. It feels more like winter. So tonight's show is going to be about trust. Last week we talked a lot about, topic of the show last week was rejection and betrayal, right? Nothing too light. We've gotten very much more deep on the show recently. I took a hiatus and I decided that I was going to get back to my roots and really start to share more of my own stories and more of the soul space with you from a perspective of what I really wanted to do originally on the show, which was talk a little bit more about what my journey to finding myself and finding my own soul space is. And so I hope you've been enjoying that, especially with last week's show. I had got a lot of really great feedback on that. It was definitely a deep show, though. So this week we're going to talk a little segue from that about trusting and trusting again. I think that one of the hardest things that we have to do in this world, especially with all the stuff going on in the outside world, is trust. And I'm going to give you some tips and some my own insight and my own journey to learning how to live in some trust. But before we get to that, I'm going to talk very briefly about the astrology and the Aries full moon that's coming in on Friday, because it kind of ties in with the aspect of trust. This Aries full moon is really, really powerful. I haven't seen a full moon this powerful in a really long time. For those of you who have Aries in your chart, if you're an Aries rising, sun or moon, you're really going to feel this depending on which house of the chart your Aries sign is in. Now, my interpretation of this full moon is a little bit different than a lot of the astrologers that you're going to listen to. A lot of times you'll hear, and you've even heard me oftentimes describe Aries energy as a very powerful energy, an energy of warrior, warlike, aggression. But there's a whole other side of Aries, which I think is really going to be very powerful with this full moon. And I think we can use the energy in order to propel our lives forward and really elevate us into more of a soul space. And that energy is that Aries is an energy that wants us to be present. Aries is an energy of presence. When you think of a buzzword with Aries, it's presence. Aries walk into the room and they want to take space. They want to feel space. They want to be in a space. Aries is in our chart, wherever it falls, is where we take up space. Aries wants to challenge us to take up more space in our life. So where do you take up space? Where are you comfortable taking up space? Is that in your work environment, your family environment? Maybe it's in a club or a community or someplace that you feel like you can really walk in and take that Wonder Woman stance and just, stand there very powerfully, and you can take up space comfortably and safely in that area. But more importantly, where are the areas where you don't take up the space that maybe you should, that you're entitled to, that maybe would increase your self-worth? That's what Aries is all about. It's about being fully present. Aries is the opposite of Libra. Whenever we have a full moon, that means the sun is in a sign and the moon is in a sign, and they're opposite. So right now we have a moon in Aries and our sun is in Libra. For those of you celebrating birthdays that are Librans, you know that. So that opposition creates an axis of a Libra-Aries axis. Aries is independent. It doesn't like to be restricted. It likes to be curious and find new things, new ways of doing things, new ways of being present in the world, new ways of standing in their space. That's Aries energy. Libra, in the opposite, the axis energy, is one of Librans avoid conflict. They don't want to go where things might be a little challenging. Aries lives for the challenge. So in this energy, we're asked to really kind of equalize that polarity. How do we do that? Well, this is going to be an energy that's going to challenge us in our lives to take up the space we should be taking up. If you're somewhere where you're not seen, you need to make yourself seen there in a very healthy way. Maybe at work you're overlooked, and maybe that's because you really don't communicate or let them know what you're doing with your time or the projects that you work on. So it's time to maybe do that in a healthy way. Or maybe in your family, you don't always get the invitation or you're not always included. Now is the time for you to take the space that you're supposed to take. That's an Aryan energy. And you want to do that with valor and courage. And that's why we're going to talk a lot about trust later in the show. So right now we're in an energy where it feels like things are starting to move forward, but we're still in this like weird gear stuck energy. And that's because we still have 5 planets that are not moving forward. Venus and Mars just recently started to move forward in the zodiac. That's why we're feeling like things are easing up a little bit, but we still have a long way to go. So this Aries full moon comes in and it shakes us up. This is aspecting other planets, which I won't go too into the details, but it's almost like one of those rides at the amusement park where you sit in it and it shakes you. I remember years ago being on the Revenge of the Mummy ride at Universal Studios, and there was a portion of the ride where it pulled us backwards and dropped us down like 5 stories. I think I still left a part of my heart there, but it's rattling, it's erupting, it's shocking. Mercury comes into play. Mercury is our minds and our speech and our communications. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys over the next few days up until the weekend is watch your words, because things are going to start to come out in words. You're going to speak before you really think. It can be explosive. So really, really watch your words in this energy. That's the best advice I can give you. Because you want to maybe talk less and think more in this energy. Be a little more introspective. This is also kind of an overdose of cosmic energy. I think that we're going to feel a lot of instability going into Friday. This full moon comes in at 6:52 in the morning. So it's when we're sleeping or maybe when we're just starting to get ready for work and things like that. The best advice I can give you come Friday, because Uranus, which is the planet of sudden impulsive change, is working on this Aries energy. So think about that. Aries is the ram, right? The ram always, thrusts in and flies in and comes in the room, or the ram charges forward. So when you have ram Aryan energy in line with the planet Uranus, which is sudden unexpected change, it can really cause something to erupt or be volcanic, or something to happen where maybe you're going to want to backtrack and think about it in a different way. So proceed cautiously if you can. Don't be that ram. Be a slower ram. Best advice, aside from watching the words, is remain flexible and also be self-aware. Something Aries is not always great at doing because they're always very fast-paced and in a rush. But you want to bring in that Libran energy, which is a little more self-aware. Be willing to embrace the unknown. Be open to change and transformation. And welcome the surprise. Realize that sometimes when change happens or a surprise happens, that it oftentimes is something that's redirecting you in a better way. So you may feel frustrated, but it's probably happening for a reason. So try and bring that to a higher octave for yourself. And then I will say that we will have a tendency in this energy, especially as we go through to the weekend, to overcompensate. It's what we call in the astrology world a reaction formation. People do that in a personality when, something starts to be disruptive or discord starts to happen and we start to overcompensate in some way. Maybe we increase the conversation when we really should be quiet, or we start to do more activity when we really should be more restful. That's a reaction formation. So watch in your life where you have a tendency to have those reactive formations, reaction formations, that sometimes can cause the discord, the volatility to become even more so. And just watch yourself. What you want to do when you start to feel that energy come in, the discord kind of ramping up, is you want to maybe stop the motion, breathe, go into a little bit of contemplation, introspection, and think about what resources you have within you that can change the course of things, instead of just jumping into action. It's almost like you bake a cake and you forgot one of the ingredients, so now you're going to throw more of it in, and then, oh, maybe this will look good and this will be good and this will be, and you just start throwing stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. That's kind of the energy. What you really want to do is realize you know more than you think you know, and you can really go into a more quietude kind of place. Think about the resources, think about the best course of action, be a little more strategic, all right? Definitely watch the words. We talked about that. Thursday night's going to be a really restless night before this full moon comes in. A lot of us are probably going to find sleep a little bit elusive. And also, you possibly could find that it conjures up a lot of dreams when you do go to sleep that evening. There's a very important full moon. It wants us to go into a cycle where we have an awareness of doing things in a different way. Totally Aryan energy. Aries is that it wants us to act on things, not repress, but not like the ram running through, a field. It wants us to do it in a way that we have adaptability. We use adaptability. We use our resources in order to be adapt and flexible. I have an expression that I often use: improvise, activate, overcome. I use that expression, 50 times a day in my business life, and I bring it into my personal life a little bit too. You want to improvise, activate, overcome. That's really the strategic way to get through this full moon. Also, this full moon has a lot of power. I will tell you that right now, especially the Aries-Libran axis is all about relationships. That is an axis where it is in the Aryan portion. Aries is curious, and Aries wants information. Aries likes to know things. But Aries is wise enough in the highest octave to know that we don't learn anything without engaging the other. So there comes a time in the Aryan cycle where we have to actually be counseled and be open to being counseled by someone who knows better. When you're in the lower octave of Aryan energy, you don't allow that. You don't listen to anyone. You think you know everything. It's from an ego perspective. That's a fear of the unknown. So if a healthy Aryan full moon is what you want to experience in this energy, you want to be open to understanding that the things you want to know may also be brought to you through knowing someone else, through communication, through connection, because we can't learn everything if we only talk to ourselves and we become repressed. We have to act things out and have communication and conversation with another in order to learn more. We don't know everything. It comes from our interaction with others, and that's growth. So that's the moon. It's coming in hot. It's going to be with us building up all week, and then it's going to really rattle some cages. Also, the other thing with this Aryan full moon is there's going to be a lot of weird attractions. You may find yourself attracted to things you wouldn't normally be attracted to, whether that's food or a place to go or a person, all right? And a lot of people, especially you're going to see this act out Friday night, a lot of people are going to give into those attractions, go for it. You're going to see a lot of weirdness in the world. And then I think, come Saturday, Sunday, you might have a lot of morning after parties that are not so fun. So I'm just putting that out there. Remember, I always tell you guys this on the podcast, and I tell myself this 20,000 times a day. Not everything that comes into your focus deserves your attention. Be sparingly with it, all right? This is also going to bring in on Saturday something that is new to us, something that hasn't happened before. So when you think about this full moon and the energy it's bringing in, it's not a repetitive cycle. This is all new. Something that hasn't happened. It's bringing in a whole lot of new stuff. Really going to be pretty good. And also, it could mean a lesson in self-control. It could mean a lesson that wants you to take a pause. So these last few days of September or until the first few days of October really are packing a powerhouse of lessons for us. So just remember, when in doubt, go slow. Confusion is an energy that is a good energy. A lot of times people push away confusion and feel like they have to act on it right away. That's also our fear of the unknown. When confusion comes into your life, you want to really look at it, dive deep in it, examine it. Don't be afraid of it and don't push it away, because confusion means something's about to change and you have control over what that something is. But first you got to look at the confusion. So remember that, and maybe exercise a little self-control. These next few days into the first few days of October really are going to be very hectic. They'll feel a little speeded up. You may be really challenged as things really become more of a challenge to you as far as where you really take up space and what you really want your life to look at as far as the places where you're recognized. It's a lot about recognition. It's about recognition in relationships, recognizing when things are truly appealing and for your higher good, and recognizing when things are appealing, but probably not for your higher good. All right. So have that discernment. And that brings me to the second part of our show, which is all about power and authentic power and trust. And so I'm going to tell you the story of why I chose to call my podcast The Soul Space. But first, I'm going to look in some comments for you. Hey, Marilyn. Hi, Monica, Elaine, Marianne. I have a lot of people on tonight. Marie, Pauline, Joanne. I've got Anita on. Anne, how you doing this week? Anne, Sarah, Janine. Got a lot of people on tonight. This is really great. Hey, Monica. It's so funny because my ears were just ringing, Marilyn. So I didn't know what that was. I thought maybe there was something in the studio, but it just stopped. So for some reason, Marilyn and I's ears are ringing. So anyway, one of the reasons I named my show Soul Space is because what Soul Space is about authentic power. And I know a lot of us, well, especially when we're younger, and this was my journey in my life for a lot of years, is we think the more forceful we are, the more loud we are, the more aggressive we are, the more we throw our opinions around and don't want to be, we need to be respected and we don't want to be, walked over, and we're just going to be this really, really strong person. And we think that's power and powerful. And then we go on journeys, right? I know a lot of you have been on the journey. We go on this little journey about, that kind of messed up my life in a lot of ways, being that aggressive or having a temper or not wanting to, let people get away with things, or feeling like I had to make a lot of things right. And then we kind of sit down and we realize, what? This really isn't working for us. Maybe I got to change something. And we start to be on the path and we search a lot of things, and maybe we find a lot of really inspirational people. And, I've had a lot of mentors in my life. I call them the army of angels that saved my life. Many of them are earthbound guides that I've had, my yogi Jackie, and a beautiful grief counselor, Adrienne DeSalvo, and many, many teachers, Catherine Barley. And I'm studying now. My astrology class for the next 7 months is through somebody in Sweden. And I go on Zoom and I actually interact with people from all over the world. And it's just a beautiful space. And so, you have gurus that are earthbound and guides all the time. And then, of course, you have your off-earth guides, your spirit guides and everything. And you go on this journey, and all of a sudden you start to really understand what authentic power is. That's our soul space. The soul space is our authentic power. And the whole journey that we do, it's really like the hero's journey, is all about trust. And so, simply stated, there's a place that we live from once you've been on this spiritual quest, this life quest, this quest to live in love instead of fear, and this journey of trust, is we find our soul space. And a lot of people call that authentic power. A lot of people call that their core. A lot of people call that their intuition, love. There's a lot of different words for it, but it's really the space of soul. And for me, that's really what it is, because that's where we connect with a higher realm, a higher power. And once I started to live through that, my life changed. And so in 2014, I'd been on the path of spirituality for a while, and I came to a crossroads. And that crossroad was, I had to recognize and start to make choices in my life for my actions. And what I came to realize through reading and a lot of philosophy and a lot of study was there are two paths in life we take, and really only two. And that's that everything we do and every choice we make is either made from a place of love or a place of fear. And when you really stop, and after the show, I hope you just think about that a little bit, because this whole show is not about me influencing you. It's about maybe you getting a little inspired by one of the Gallon to find your own soul space and your own place of authentic power, where you're not in a false fear-driven power of having to be loud or get your point across a certain way. Living in your soul space really means being so authentically powerful that you're just really strong and trustworthy within yourself, and you've given part of yourself over to a higher power that you have that much trust. So when you think about and after the show, I hope you do, think about where my decisions come from. Why do I do the things I do? For instance, maybe you went to sleep last night and you had a dream, and you woke up this morning and you're thinking about the dream. Well, what makes you believe the dream was real, and what makes you think it was just a silly old thing with no message in it? Trust, right? You got to trust one way or the other. Um, or maybe you see something on television and someone's telling you an opinion. What makes you think one opinion is good and another opinion you throw out the window? Well, trust. Obviously, you trusted something to be right. So everything we do in our life involves trust. Once you're on the path of self-study and self-development, every choice you make is some kind of trust or mistrust. Everything you do. And, stay with me because I'm really going someplace with all this. So trust is a significant part of our power. When we trust something and we're listening to something and we're trusting it, whether that's your religion or me or spirituality or a counselor or a boss or a mom or a dad or something that you trust, your universal principle, your that is power. You decided to give power to that thing because you trusted it. So somewhere along the path, every crossroad, every decision we make, we're giving power to something. Or we are repressing power because we don't trust something. And what happens when we repress that power is we withdraw, right? If you think about what that feels like in the body, maybe you have a loved one. It could be a parent. It could be a child. It could be a neighbor, whoever, right? You don't trust that person. How does your body feel around them, right? It feels closed. It feels uncomfortable. You want to protect yourself. You may even be in a room and kind of like, sit like this, or you might just cross your legs, or you may have your back to that person, or maybe you don't want to make eye contact. It's a really uncomfortable feeling because we're not meant to be closed. We're meant to be open as people, because remember what I just said about the Aries moon? When that happens and we mistrust, we're closing ourselves off. We're not able to enlarge our heart space. We're not able to enlarge love in our life. We're not able to redeem love. We cut off love in our life. We actually become physically not as well. Studies show that people who live in isolated environments because they've withdrawn and shut themselves off actually don't live as long as others and actually have more health problems than others. So if someone tells you something, you decide right in that moment if you're trusting them or not, if it's true or not. Do I trust this? Do I not trust this? When you're about to do something, maybe something new, maybe something you've never done before, right? This Aries full moon is bringing in a lot of energy, this new energy for us. Well, how do you decide what you're going to do? You trust something. You have to trust somewhere. Power, right? Authentic power. So if we operate in a system where we're fearful, right? And fear takes many forms. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm powerful. I'm strong. That's okay. Maybe you are. Maybe you take up a lot of space, right? That's Aries energy. But are you taking up space out of love, or are you taking up space out of fear? For instance, when I do the soul space and I take up this space, it's pure love. I'm not afraid here. I don't mistrust this space. I trust divine power because I'm in a soul connection to let this show flow however it's supposed to flow. See, if I misspeak, okay, it was supposed to happen. So every time I get on the mic, every time the camera flips on, I got to trust something. I have to trust myself to bring something really good to you. I have to trust spirit to give me the words. I have to trust my core to do the right thing and not give a bad message to someone, right? That's a lot of trust. If I don't step into my power to do that, it's not going to be a good show. If I'm fearful when the mic goes on, if I'm fearful when the camera goes on, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good. I better hold on for dear life. What am I going to do now? If I'm like that, I can guarantee you the show's going to bomb. It's going to be a terrible show. No one's going to want to listen to me. It's going to come through. You're going to feel it. I'm going to be closed. I'm not going to have an idea. I'm not going to be creative. When we withdraw, there's no place for love to grow. There's no place for our creativity to grow. There's no place for us to advance in abundance. There's no place for us to elevate. We're just going to do the same thing every day on the rat wheel. Just that's how it's going to be. And every one of us has places in our life where we're doing that because we're fearful. Maybe it's because we've been conditioned to be fearful. Maybe it's because we were brought up with a mistrust that has been handed down through generation. A lot of times our parents have fear of scarcity, fear of abandonment. And so we grow up with this restriction, which is Aryan energy. The karma of Aries energy is that the Aries will be restricted in life so that they learn how to break free and liberate themselves. And that's what trust is all about. We're restricted someplace in our life. We self-restrict, we self-impose, we mistrust, and we have to learn how to break free from that to liberate our lives. So how do we do that? There's a couple of different ways, and I'm going to show you. Because creating authentic power brings the abundance in, whether that's financial, whether that's material, whether that's spiritual, whether that's heart-based. We can't have that if we're closed and in fear. So the first thing you want to do is you want to recognize, okay? Recognize what your decisions are coming from. Are you making your decisions because you're afraid of something, or are you making your decisions because of love? Now, this is a process that you're going to go through your whole entire life. I was on the path for many years before 2014, and I kind of woke up one day, and I was like, I was reading a lot. I was doing a lot of philosophies. I read this wonderful book called The Surrender Experiment. I highly recommend it to everybody who really wants to be able to let go of things in their life and live more in a place where you're not so angry or bitter or cynical or negative, and you really want to be in a place where there's more abundance and you're more open to allowing beauty to come into your life. So I read the Surrender Experiment, and I decided and made a conscious effort that I was going to live a love-based life instead of a fear-based life. And I started to do a lot of things. I closed down a business. I went on a different tack in my life. Made different choices. I actually started to do really crazy things. I remember going to Aruba and parasailing to get my soul free. And I had an experience there, which I'll tell in a different show. But things just started completely go into alignment as soon as I did that. And even recently, I took a hiatus from this podcast, and I started to really go into a place of love and open myself to, once again, recognizing as I made decisions in my life, am I choosing this from fear? Am I choosing this from love? And going into the right lane, love, 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 and really making those decisions. I think about those things a lot when I'm in interaction with people, because, people push our buttons, and we want to react. Remember that reactive formation we were talking about? And so we have all these mechanisms that we react. We're pushed into a corner and we yell and scream, or we're pushed into a corner and we go for the jugular, or we push into a corner and we withdraw and we go home. Or somebody judges us poorly and we don't want to go there anymore. It could be your work environment, and you're not standing up and you're not taking space because you're in fear. You think, oh, I'm going to show them. I'm just going to cut that person out of my life. Well, no, you're probably in fear of allowing that person in your life because maybe they're telling you something about yourself that you don't want to know. That's a whole other story. But I started to make, just in the last few weeks, renew my commitment to living in a place of love and that path and taking the right path. And boy, was it an eye-opener. Like even this morning, something so insignificant, I was actually, for those of you who live on Long Island, I was on the Oakdale Merge, which is a traffic nightmare. I had to go to a bank for something. And as I'm on this Oakdale Merge, all of a sudden traffic just stopped, and I sat there for 45 minutes, and I felt myself starting to get panicky. And my mind was racing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to miss the appointment. This is going to happen. I'm trapped here. I can't move. There's not even an exit to get off. Oh, this is horrible. And I caught myself and I said, wow, G, you are really spiraling into that fear-based mentality. Where's the love? You got 45 minutes. You don't really know. You've been here 45 minutes. You don't really know how much it's going to last. But why waste 45 minutes of your life in pure anger, in frustration, and in, fear? Now you're going into anxiety. So I went into love and I put on some beautiful music and I started to think about the podcast and how I wanted to spend the rest of my day. And I made a joke of it. And I said, God, I feel like Larry David in an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, because it was just a, Murphy's Law kind of morning. And I made the best of it. And I loved myself a little bit. And then I had a sense of humor about things, and it wasn't very stressful at all. Something like that is an example of how we allow conditioning and fear and frustration to take over our life because we're making that choice in the lower octave. So it could be a choice about anything. When someone starts to argue with you, are you arguing back at them because you're afraid that they're going to step on you, or you're afraid that you're not going to look powerful? Well, what if you came from a place of love and you said to them, you know what, I don't really want this in my life. I want to be in a place of love because I've made a conscious choice to recognize in my life when I'm acting out of a fear-based mentality. Really powerful. And that's how you exemplify and embody trust in your life. It comes from going into love and making your choices not out of fear, but out of love. That makes you more trustful of yourself and trustful of a higher power. So trust what your heart tells you to do. And every time you do that, you respond from a heart instead of I'm going to show that person. Every time you can drop down into that heart space, and it takes a lot. When we first start doing it, it's got to be like a really conscious thing. What is my heart telling me to do? Every time we do that, something within us resonates. And that little thing that resonates is our soul space. That's our power. And every time we go into making choices of love and that little place of trust, all of a sudden, we start to trust other things. We start to trust other people. We're not so blocked. That's living above the five senses. You're not responding from what you see and what you hear and what you smell and what you taste and what you feel with touch. You're responding by what you feel in your heart. Your heart has a brain, believe it or not. And when you trust the heart space to guide you and direct you, and you're living from that soul space, and the soul space becomes your operating system, that's trust. You're giving your life over to trusting a higher power, which is your heart, your feelings, your emotions. They carry more power. So tap into the soul space. Look there for the intention. Why am I acting this way? Why am I doing this? Why am I picking up the phone to tell somebody off? Is that coming from my heart space? Is that coming from love? No, it's coming from mistrust. You don't trust yourself enough to be powerful. You've got to act things out in a false sense of power. So a lot of this is ingrained in us. And I will say, I don't want to blame our parents or anything, but there is a generation of people who have been brought up in fear and scarcity. And they have ingrained in us a reactive brain, a mistrustful brain, because they're mistrustful. And they act out their fears of abandonment and fears of things through us. So then when we have that operating system as our main gear, that's the drive in the car, well, maybe we need to put it in different mode, and maybe we need to learn to drive from a different gear. And that's our heart space. And when we do that, we start to let our soul guide us. And of course, that requires more and more trust. But every time we do it, we start to understand that power, that authenticity that's within us. And it allows us to open up to other people. Because now we don't have to assert power in a false way of being louder, bolder, stronger. Now we assert our power through love. And I think you'll all agree, there is no power in the universe greater than love. And notice I said universe, I'm not just saying earth. Off planet, in every dimension, in other worlds, in paradise, in what we know as heaven, in other realms, there is no greater power than love. So why the heck aren't we operating out of that system? Why are we operating out of fear and ego and strength of power, false power, might is right? Why are we operating out of a system that is really not working for us? It's making us fearful and mistrustful. If love is the greatest power in the universe, why are we not operating from it? Trust it. It's real. It works. It's our soul space. And we want to operate from the soul space. And every time you do that, you actually are increasing the vibration of humanity. Because if we all operated just even a little bit more than we are today, if tomorrow we wake up and operate just a little bit more from our soul space, can you imagine what the universe would be like? It would be pretty damn awesome. So I'm going to challenge you all that. And remember, when you're frightened, you can't grow. When you're angry, you can't grow. When you are jealous, envious, in any of those emotions, you can't allow anything in that's going to make your life better or increase your purposeful life on this world. The only thing that you can do to allow yourself to become better, smarter, wiser, more abundant, and live a better life is open to love and be love and operate in love and go places where love is redeemed in your life. And I know it sounds corny and I know it sounds cliche, but that is the operating system we need to work from. And when you start to work from that and you really start to live in the soul space, what happens is you're so powerful, you don't have to worry about people trampling you or usurping your freedom. You're so liberated that you don't even need to fight for those things because you're liberated within yourself and you're operating in the system that you want to operate in. So don't become closed. Don't give into that fear. Don't give into that lack of abundance. Don't, give into the places that don't allow you to take your space in the world. Do it, but do it from a beautiful place of love and do it from a place where the universe is going to present an opportunity to you in a good way. Because if you find that you're in conflict a lot and that you are struggling a lot with anger or depression or fear or anxiety, and it's like a cycle in your life, what that really is the universe presenting an opportunity for you to do it different, to change gears, to take up a different space, to operate in a different system. And when you keep pushing that opportunity away and keep operating in the same fearful, angry, cynical, jealous, envious system, the universe has no choice but to keep making that come up and making those places arise. Because the only way you're going to learn to operate from a different system is within the system you're operating from and seeing the opportunity it presents. Like today being stuck in the traffic jam. I could have worked myself up into a tizzy of anxiety, but I suddenly recognized the opportunity I had to go into a different operating system, which would have been love. And I used the time to love myself. And for the last few minutes of that traffic jam, I thought about those things I wanted to do and the podcast and put myself in a joyous space. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, the traffic opened up. No exaggeration. And then some other things happened and I had a sense of humor about them. And it was a really different experience than what would have been if I stayed in the operating system ingrained in me. Traffic. Oh, we're not moving. Oh my God, what's going to happen? This is awful. Traffic on Long Island sucks. What am I going to do? Why isn't this guy in the right lane? What is he doing? He's cutting me off. That doesn't help anything, does it? So I changed it. And we have the power to do that by going into the soul space, by going into love, the authentic power. That's how powerful we are to change every experience we can have through our own self. And if you're of the belief that someone around you, another person, is creating your operating system, making you be angry or fearful or in that negative operating system, that is so entirely the wrong way to think, because as soon as you think that that person is doing that, you just gave up all your power. Because your authentic power knows better, and your authentic power knows that you are always the one who is in control of the decision. And the only one you give your power away to is the higher power than you. And that higher power is whatever you want to call it: soul, God, Buddha, Kuan Yin, aliens, angels, off-planet energy, whatever it might be. That's the higher power. And that's the only place where you give your power to. So by living in connection with that, you become the most powerful person that you can possibly ever be. So I'm going to go to comments and realize that reaching inside yourself to trust frees your soul from any restriction you have, any restriction that you're in the illusion that someone else is causing. whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever it might be, if you think someone else is causing that in you, that's an illusion. You have the power to come out from under that by tapping into your soul space, the love in your heart, in your world, in your universe, in connection with spirit, and operating in that system. All right, I'm going to read the comments. Marilyn says, I shift my perception a lot when I start getting frustrated. Yeah, frustration is like the devil to me because I used to be such a frustrated individual. I'm not so frustrated anymore because I look for the polarity through it, which the polarity through frustration is love. You got to laugh about it. I'm going to this person is so frustrating, but my gosh, they're so detail oriented. I got to find a way to love that, Or, wow, this person is all over the place. I'm having a really hard time following that. You know what? Maybe I could just make this a game or make it a curiosity or something. There's always a way to get around it and just have love for that person. And Monica, the same thing. She's been catching herself. I think we're becoming more in more recognition of it because the energy in the world is changing. The energy in the world is really going to ease off astrologically in 2024, and we're going to have a lot more stability than we've been having these last 3 years. So I think we're being prepared for that. All right. Marilyn hit it right on the head. We're taught to operate out of fear so we can be controlled easier. Love sets us free. Absolutely. When you're letting your fear, your anger, your jealousy, your envy control you, you are the weakest person that you could be at that moment. You're really becoming weak when you are allowing that emotion to control you. Allow love to step in. I have a call. Hi, it's Georgia Rose. You're on the Soul Space.
Oh, hi, Georgia. Hi, it's nice talking to you. My name is Anne. How are you doing?
Hi, Anne. How are you tonight? How are you enjoying the show?
I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm not sure if I ever called before. I don't know. Can we ask questions?
Yes,
live,
please do.
Like psychic questions?
Sure, I can do a psychic question if you'd like. What is your question?
Well, I'm very much interested and attracted to one man, the man that I know. And I'm not sure if the romance will develop, or maybe he's not into me, or maybe he has someone else. And that's the situation. I just don't know. Do you see that things will develop between us romantically?
I'm seeing the number 5 or 6 in my mind. Is this like 5 months, 5 weeks, 5 years or something? 6? Why is the number 5 and 6 coming up for me?
I don't know.
Well, maybe it'll come to you afterwards. It definitely has some significance. I know sometimes on the show, if something like that comes on, you can't think in the moment. I'm feeling the energy I'm getting is, especially around this full moon this weekend, that something is going to change. Maybe you're going to have some more insight. But I feel like you're pursuing this, like you're the pursuer and you're not getting back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am. And honestly, I don't know if he's concerned about something, or he's unavailable, or he simply doesn't like me because he didn't make any moves. I think that he likes me. Maybe I'm wrong.
So
maybe he's involved with someone. I don't know.
I'm going to give you my short version, and it's a little bit psychic, but it's mostly philosophical. Instead of asking, and this goes for everybody out there, whether it's male or female, instead of asking, does he like me? Does he love me? Is he interested? The question you really want to ask is, do I feel loved? Do I feel interest? Go into the body. And what are you really feeling? I feel a lot of fear, a lot of mistrust, and a lot of doubt here. And when a relationship is real and it is reciprocated and redeemed, you don't feel those things. So that's your answer.
Actually, I do feel that he is interested in me, but he didn't make any moves to date me.
But how do you feel? When you're around him, do you feel love? Do you feel appreciated? Do you feel like he is? Is he giving you attention? Yes. And is it genuine?
Yeah.
Is it genuine, or do you feel like you are mistrusting this? You can't really trust it. It's not stable for you. Because if it was, you wouldn't call into the show and ask about it.
Wow.
Right?
What is your psychic feeling on this?
My psychic feeling is that I hate to say it. I hate to say it, and I don't want you to be upset, but I feel like he's playing you.
He's playing me?
Yeah, I feel like it's
Oh.
not authentic.
Mm.
Yeah, and I know you don't want to hear that, but there's a classic case of you're fearful about him not reciprocating, and I think that I would leave it alone for a while. Just move on, and if it comes back around to something better, but for right now, I don't think it's right. Doesn't feel right.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you,
You're
Georgia.
welcome. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye-bye.
I just want to put that out there for everybody. Also, when you are questioning something, take a break. Because if it's meant to be, and I'm not trying to sound sappy or cliche, like if you set it free and it comes back, I don't believe in that either. But from a realistic point of view, when love is real, it's not going to be something you question. You may have issues in a relationship. There may be problems and obstacles that you're going to work out that, come up, but that person loves you. If you have to question that, it's not real. That's the big difference. And I think a lot of times when we're alone and we're lonely, we have these situationships that are not really relationships. So we have another call. Hi, this is Georgia Rose. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Georgia, it's Aaron. How are you?
Hey, Aaron. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm actually doing great.
I saw your post and you look great. You look like you're doing good.
Well, thank you.
I wouldn't be too fearful of this Aries full moon coming in. For everybody out there, Aaron has a lot of has it's an Aries moon. Don't be too fearful, Aaron. I know you sweat that stuff. I think this is actually going to open some doors for you because you've been doing so much work and self-study.
Well, that and if you remember from when you did my chart reading on the show, I have a lot of things in Aries.
Yes.
Chiron,
Yep.
Venus, some other things I forgot.
So I think you're probably doing a lot of healing now. And also I know you're coming into a lot of other things that are new for you. And this is all about new energy. So definitely hold that and let it flow. Did you have a particular question today or are you just calling to say hi
Yeah,
or?
just a couple things
Okay.
actually. So I was just curious because I follow an app and I don't know how exact that app is, but it seems to be pretty dead on.
Okay.
Um, since it says something that my north node conjuncts the full moon in Aries.
Okay. That's
So I know
good.
that that's kind of like,
No, that's
I
good
know that that's
actually.
new energy. I know that's emotional and that's a good thing, but wanted a little more about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, actually, I'm going to read you right now, just like from my own intuitive, psychic ability and the chart. Because as soon as I heard your energy on the phone and connected with it, I felt like this full moon was going to bring in a really new path for you in a really good way and really open up
Okay.
something. And not just because you've been doing all this self study, but now that you've told me the North Node is conjunct this moon in Aries, I really think that that's something really significant for you. Our north node is like our compass setting due north. The north node is, the nodes are the arc of development in the chart. It shows the
Hmm.
path and the journey that we go on in order to come into our own power and our real full potential. The north node is our destiny. It's what we are brought into this lifetime to do. So with the full moon in Aries and your Aries moon there and all of that energy there, this is really pointing you towards your destiny. Now,
Yep.
remember, it doesn't mean it's going to happen like in a 5 minute, thing like you see in a movie. This energy will be with you for a while, but it means you're on the path to really, coming into a place of truly full potential and a soul space. So really, kind of make note of the things that come in during this full moon in the next few days before and after, and try and really become aware and have some real recognition of the things going on, situations, people that come in, things like that. Do you know what house it's happening in? I think it's seventh, right?
I
Trying to remember your
want
chart.
to say, yeah. So I know that my Venus, I think Venus is in the seventh house of Aries. I
Okay.
think it is.
And Venus
I would
is
have to
direct
look
now.
really quick.
Yeah. So I think it's probably going to bring something into you that shows you about the value in your value in this world and the things you love. I think this is going to be a good energy for you.
Okay.
Yeah. And you had one other question?
Oh no, and the other thing was just a comment for like the last person that called,
Yeah.
and I think
What
it's
did
good for
you feel
everyone to
anything on
hear.
that? I just
Stop
didn't get a good
chasing
vibe, and
love.
I feel
When you
bad because
chase love, you never get it because energy flows one way.
Yep. Yep.
Let it come back to you.
I love that, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. You're dead on there. I just feel like I let her down. But, sometimes you got to tell people fish or cut bait. And I think there's actually something, if you're still watching, Anne, I think there's something that wants to come in for you that's much better, but you're very preoccupied with this energy. So thanks, Aaron. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Send in love. So I just want to
Bye.
recap because we only have a few minutes left in the show and I didn't get to all the comments, but I just want to recap that what the trust thing, in order to make trust really happen in your life and live from that soul space of trust and abundance. First thing, recognize, is it fear or love? Second, trust and listen to the right path. The frightened part of the personality closes down and shuts down. So you don't want to go into the frightened part of your personality because once that comes on, no one can reach you. You're unreachable when you're in that. And frightened part of personalities come out in a lot of different ways. It can be anger. It can also be, we all know that person who's like the clown, really gregarious, always laughing, always joking. But then you go to have a one-on-one with them and they're like, there's nothing there. That's because they're operating from the fear part of their personality. They don't want anybody to see who they really are. That's an insecurity. So the same thing with anger. People throw fits and raise their voices and get angry because they want to project the fear on you so that they are seemingly more powerful, but they're really in a weak feeling. They're frightened. They're scared. They want things to end, so they try and be louder and bolder. So trust and listen to that right part of your personality that isn't frightened, because when we're frightened, we put ourselves in a microcosm. We shrink everything in our life when we go into anger and fear and anxiety. It's like we're just this little old woman who's living in a little dot. You want to live free and abundant. So don't go into anger. Don't go into scarcity. Don't go into fear. Don't go into jealousy and envy because it will shrink you and you will have a not so good life. Anger, jealousy, fear, all that emotion lives in us. It has no place outside. It's all in us. We might think we're throwing it all over the room or flipping the bird at somebody in traffic, but it's all in us. It never really goes outside. It's all in us. It's in that microcosm. It's part of the personality that we can't trust. And when we live in that, we find it harder and harder to trust someone else. So that's what we need to do. So recognize it. Don't live in that tiny part of your personality that's creating your life to be a microcosm, those fearful parts, those angry parts. And then the third thing is trust the higher power. The only place to give your power over to that doesn't live within yourself is to allow it to be in a higher power. And then everything works out great. So it takes a lot of courage to live in the soul space. And it also takes a lot of courage for me to do this podcast. So I want to thank you guys for allowing me this beautiful space. And I will see you next week right here, 7 p.m., and we'll continue the discussion, and I'll even bring up some of the comments. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll be back next Monday night at 7 o'clock, and you can always watch the replays on every podcast platform, even Spotify. Bye-bye now.